Hello everyone and welcome back to Anything Joe's. My name is Greg Engel and today we're going to take a quick look and an unboxing at the new HIYA Studios G.I. Joe Storm Shadow. If you're not familiar with this figure, the HIYA Studios is an international producer of figures. These are not being sold in the US at this time. I had to buy this one off eBay and it was pretty expensive, so I'm really hoping that it's worth it. Let's take a quick look at the packaging. The packaging for this Storm Shadow is completely different packaging art. They've made a whole new picture of Storm Shadow for the front. It's still got the, the classic burst logo. My card was severely damaged in transit. They actually folded it in half and you can see that here. So I guess buyer beware if you're opening to keep on the card. Make sure you get it from a reputable source. It was fortunate that I was planning on opening this anyway. On the back, there's no file card or anything unique like that, just a couple of pictures of Storm Shadow in action and some fine print. Opening the figure, we see that it comes with looks like a stand and two kind of like, I guess those are brackets to help either lock other pieces together or maybe lock him into it. I guess we'll get into that here in a minute. And then the figure itself, we'll get to the accessories in just a second. Here's the figure. Let's go ahead and pop him out. So, if you've been following the classified line, you might be aware that this Storm Shadow is based off of a classified design that did not come to fruition. We saw him in the Operation Blackout game. We also saw him in a lot of the t-shirts and promotional art. This tattooed arm is like a big giveaway about that. And yeah, so it's interesting to see this design finally come to light. In terms of articulation, this figure has got a pretty standard modern articulation. We've got a swivel in the hands, which do come out. There are extra hands. Shoulder locks here. You can load it into position here. The ball joint for this it might be hard to see, but is substantially different than your average modern figure. It really stands out even when turned into place. He's got some pretty limited posability in the arms. I got to be upfront about that. I'm actually having trouble even getting it back down to where it was. So we'll just leave that alone for right now. Same thing with this arm. Head obviously goes all the way around. Let me see. So this is the ball joint in the figure. If you're a customizer or you're looking to swap it out, it definitely isn't going to slot into the modern figures the same way that we're used to. All right, leg joints have got, pretty standard ninja kick in action. The loincloth piece doesn't really interfere too much with what's going on. Knee joints, you can pretty much get them in most of the way back, not all the way back. Don't bend forward at all. These knee joints are obviously different as well. The construction of this figure is, even though it might be similar to a modern figure, it's definitely got its own thing going on. Feet angled down like this, full rotate all the way around. So some pretty good, posability overall, considering, compared to your standard modern articulation. Let's see what kind of stuff Storm Shadow comes with before we take a look at how he compares to other size figures. Sorry, my workspace is so dirty. I wasn't planning on filming the ground, but here we are. Okay, so Storm Shadow comes with a bevy of different accessories. He's got two interchangeable hands right here. It doesn't look like they're substantially different. It's still just for basically gripping a different weapon. I'm guessing if he was holding his bow or his sword, you might have to change to this. He's got two individual katanas. It looks like this might have something to do with these blocks, maybe the way that they slot in like that. Oh, here's the peg for his back also. Let's see. Individual katana's got differentiates between the silver of the blade and the black of the hilt, which is a nice touch that you don't always see. Same thing with the second sword. Looks like they come out of the actual harness as well if you want to use them individually. This is his full hood, which we'll look at here when we go to take a look at the full figure. And if you wanted to take off that little folded back hood and replace it with the full hood, you can do that. He has a compound bow, I think that's the right word for it, with a actual string that you can actually pull back. I'm not going to test it too much, but it looks like it does the job to a fairly realistic fashion. He's got a quiver, which is very high-tech looking, which I think is very cool. Also has a slot for the peg in the back. Individual arrows that come out, so you can load them into the bow. Really nice. They've got like a real, let me see if I can get up close on them. They've got like a real sharp tip to them. Yeah, there you go. So that's cool. And then we have our base, which we'll also test in just a second. Let's get them all geared up and see how it looks. I'm not going to use this for the final version reveal, but I wanted everybody to see it because this is what he looks like with the hood on. Unless I've done it incorrectly, I think it looks pretty bad, quite frankly. So just beware that this is kind of what the full version looks like. I'm going to use just the hood down for the final show. All right, and here he is all geared up. I ended up going with the arrow configuration and the sword because I wanted to showcase both of his weapons. I really think this figure looks exceptional. The detailing on the tattoos, all the little fine stuff on his outfit, I think is great. I really like the science fiction-y looking quiver that he's using. He's got just he's like a hint of technology, you know, with his mysticism basically. You'll notice also on the back there that the peg on the backpack goes through the bandolier and then into his back, which is off center, so you can kind of like tilt it at an angle easier, which I think is very cool. And then of course the stand itself, which is like just a piece of earth. It's a little bit nicer touch than just your average, you know, regular old stand. I think this figure is great. If I was going to change one thing about this figure, it would be that head mask. I would put a more classic Storm Shadow face on it. But until I'm more comfortable with how these figures work with the regular modern Joes, I'm probably not going to try that anytime soon. And at the very least, this is a radically different Storm Shadow than what I'm used to. So I appreciate adding that to my collection. Will I get more of these? Well, that's going to depend on the availability. Until we can find a reputable US reseller at $40 a pop, and that's the starting point for most of these, is a little out of my reach, but it was nice to pony up just once and kind of get myself a little special taste of what this line is going to look like, which I have high hopes for. I really look forward to seeing what the next reveals are on the series. Anyway, let's take a look at how this Storm Shadow compares to other Storm Shadows. In this comparison, I've picked the earliest Storm Shadow, V1, and one of the latest Storm Shadows from the 50th anniversary or later as a height comparison. Obviously, the difference between a 3 3/4 figure and the Storm Shadow is very noticeable. He's a head or more taller, but I don't think there are a ton of people out there still mixing vintage and modern Joes. But just so you can see it, there it is. The modern figure, on the other hand, is pretty close in scale. I mean, the HIYA Storm Shadow's got a little bit of a boost because of the base, but if you put them back to back, yeah, it's pretty comparable. So if the quick question was, will the HIYA toys be compatible with the modern Joe figures? I'd say unequivocally the answer is yes. Anyway, I hope this video has been useful, and thanks so much for watching. We look forward to talking to you next time. You can hear more thoughts on this HIYA Storm Shadow on the next episode of Anything Joe's, which releases this Wednesday. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll talk to you again soon.